Hello and welcome to Dmexco 2015, and it's the second day of the event. Lots of people, lots of hustle and bustle, and I'm delighted to say we've collared a few of those experts wandering the halls to come over and have a chat to us about how digital and data is changing the world of advertising, media and marketing. Just a quick introduction. So here immediately to my right we have Stuart Renshaw, who is the Digital Development Director for McCormick. Correct. Now, this is Taide Guajardo. I have been practicing. The European Marketing Director for Procter Gamble, thank you. And Iain Jacobs, who's the President EMEA at Starcom MediaVest Group. Thank you all, firstly, for coming along. Now, what we're going to talk about is how brands can use digital to establish a lead in the data-led communications with consumers. You know, we're going to talk about precision marketing, we're going to talk about story building and technology, and how all of that leads to ultimately the goal of the right message to the right consumer in the right context at scale. So to kick us all off, so much of what we see in this event is, you know, the developments in content, in media, in commerce. It's a changing world that we all operate in, and how has that affected advertisers? Iain, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's enormously disruptive, actually, to both brand owners and to agencies. And if you're not disrupting yourself, somebody else is going to disrupt you. And you can see at this conference just exactly how powerful some of this change is. Yeah. And with mobile, the mobile phone is the most powerful disruptive device that we've got. So the world is going to change more. We're at the early stages of that disruption. My guidance to people on this is really, you've got to think about this where you came out there, Alex, which is talking about people. The danger is, as a brand owner, that your people move faster than you do. People are ahead of the brands, and they're gaining connections and talking about your brand without you actually being part of that conversation as a brand owner. And that can be highly disruptive. Yeah. Then again, it's a big opportunity for brands to move with people, to better understand people through the data, so they can better service that particular community.
Yeah. As marketeers, do you feel disrupted? Is that a sort of sense that you get?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I recognise the disruption absolutely in the marketplace, but also I see it as a massive opportunity as well. So as there's a convergence coming as we get data and we get closer to the consumer, the opportunity to be much more to that consumer, but much more direct relationship is growing. So we're not just going through third parties and advertising through media channels or selling through retailers. We're building direct relationships. We're able to sell. We're able to engage and talk to consumers far more directly. And I think that's the power that the data has given us.
Does that echo what you're experiencing, that direct relationship?
Absolutely, yes. And to your question before, I would say it's excitingly disruptive because it makes our jobs definitely much more interesting. It makes them more challenging. It makes us think in new ways. It forces us to have white piece of paper approaches more often than what we used to have. It makes us have white piece of paper approaches actually almost like every year. It's not like I'm going to start for a white piece of paper for the next 10 years. No, it's more like, okay, for the next year, and then let's see what happens, and then we kind of review it again and again. So it's an exciting opportunity for those that will be able to do it well to get more sales more effectively. For those that don't get it well, it's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be a nightmare because it's going to be much more difficult than it has ever been.
We all talk about data and the importance of data, but perhaps sometimes what can be lost is understanding actually how data helps, that it doesn't just add complexity to the situation. What are the benefits of data-driven marketing?
Well, I don't mind starting with that one. I think actually we're, again, at the early stages of the real strong deployment of data. A lot of data at the moment, and you see it at this conference, a lot of data is being used for performance marketing and optimization. And that's fine, but it's very much at the lower end of the funnel, if you will, the lower end of the consumer journey, which is kind of one small part of it. In reality, I think what the smart brands are doing is using data in a much more strategic way to better understand new audiences, new segments, what they want, how that might inform product development. So a much more holistic and strategic use of data. And I think that's where we'll really start to open up the most exciting opportunities above and beyond optimization, if you will.
Yes.
So it's not just about communication then, so it actually affects the whole business?
Yeah, I completely recognise that in innovation. So traditionally we would go about having an innovation or developing new products, we'd brief our culinary team to come back with ideas. I mean, now it starts with the data. What are the flavours people are interested in, what's trending out there, what are people looking for, and that's how you then inform your NPD development process. And of course, with content, we are now much more data-led than we have been in the past. Again, previously we would maybe, for example, if we're looking at Christmas, we would look at turkey recipes, which are very popular. Everyone makes turkey recipes and they're very, very competitive. Now when you actually look below the data, there's much bigger opportunities elsewhere, for example Christmas drinks or mulled wine, for example, that we can really leverage for our brand much more effectively. So that's the content we create, and we let other people talk about turkey recipes.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because an organisation like P&G, for instance, has always known its customers. I mean, that's been one of the strengths, presumably, knowing what they want, releasing the right product into the market. So what does data offer then? And does it take it to the next level, basically?
Yes, it takes it to the next level. It allows us to be more granular. It allows us to be more precise. It allows us to be more agile. And I must say that we were talking about new product development, and I've been hearing as I've been going to some of these conferences, it's not only about marketing, but it goes beyond. But if you go to Kotler, Mr. Kotler said marketing is product, pricing, promotion, and distribution. Yep. So marketing is everything that has to do with what do you need to do to get more sales for your customer in these 4 areas. So all these 4 areas could benefit from an increased access to more detailed, faster data.
Yeah, and I'd add to that. And P&G are masters at this. The good marketing, who, where, when, and what, still remains. I think what data and technology allows you to do is to attack that problem in a different way. You should be much more granular on the who. And when we have moved increasingly to a mobile-driven world, you're talking about unique user IDs and being able to have a precision conversation with people and a direct conversation with people. And that's the real transformation that's going on today.
I think it's a really interesting, bringing Kotler into the conversation is a really interesting reminder that data is really like an invaluable tool, but those core marketing disciplines still exist. I mean, data can confuse and add more complexity to a brief, but getting down to a really core insight and a very, very clear objective for your brief is still the same challenge that it's always been in marketing. Data can help you do that, but it can also make it more complicated.
I suppose for a long time the role of marketing departments was perhaps to anticipate consumer need, or anticipate what consumers are going to want. Now we perhaps have a situation where consumers are the ones forging ahead in the way that they use technology, from mobile to online video and everything else in between. And actually, marketing organisations are having to reorganise themselves to kind of keep up with the consumer. Is that am I being unfair, or is that ring true?
For me, it absolutely rings true. We as an organisation, we can move quite slowly sometimes. It can take weeks to get a brief signed off and get everybody behind the brief, and it's an invaluable process to do that because you move a lot faster afterwards. If you look at people like the dunking in the dark example from Oreos, within minutes of the lights going off at the Super Bowl, they'd come out with an amazing piece of creative. And we need to be much more fast and much more agile and much more flat and also much more empowering to the people who actually really understand the digital stuff. I mean, you can't have layers and layers of people approving, copying content because you miss the opportunity, or you dilute the impact of that piece of creative. So we need to really think about how we move faster and how we kind of get the right people with the right empowerment to go and execute things quickly.
But we're talking about big international organisations. That can't be easy.
It's definitely a nightmare. and you know what? There's not a one-size-fits-all. And we've been studying a lot about, what is the right organization and how should we get organized to succeed there. And it's been, we've made some experiments, and I don't think I have seen anyone that has got it yet. The thing that I have seen works well is when you have something new, if you have people that are kind of going deep and trying to understand and codify for the rest of the organization to embrace, that normally, helps you get there faster, as opposed to everybody learn everything at the same time, and it becomes, a little bit chaotic. That's one of the things that I have seen is working better. But at the end of the day, we need to come to a world in, a few years from now where, as we were growing up as marketers, and we knew very well what TV did, what print did, what radio did, that should be the world of tomorrow, where people have codified and understood more intimately what are the levers they can pull in order to conquer their own consumers.
Yeah, and disruption is an organisational issue, and it has to be brought in too by the C-suite. The C-suite need to understand that the world has changed and you're now into a precision world, compared to the previous world. One of the great learnings is actually from some of those disruptor businesses. I mean, it's interesting to look at how Airbnb attack a market and how they're totally data-driven as an organisation. But also, interestingly, of course, Airbnb can learn off the likes of P&G, because P&G is about how you scale expertise around the world to drive a business. So it's not all one-sided, but absolutely you need organisational change to make this happen.
Yeah. Can I just add one more point on? I mean, I think organisational change is absolutely critical for this, but also the individuals in the organisation and their capability is also really, really important. So, yes, we struggle. We take time and we spend a lot of energy and create friction with people not necessarily understanding some of the more fundamental digital principles. So, the quicker you can get everybody up to a certain understanding and capability in digital marketing, just the better the organisation is at kind of getting things through and executing.
I mean, I guess when you're training as marketeers, there was a broad scope of elements to it, and one of the challenges perhaps now is that certain topics are becoming so complex that you need specialists. But that specialism then erodes from the being able to have that helicopter view of an entire brand sort of marketing output. I mean, is that a bit of a challenge? Reconciling the need for specialist knowledge with real brand expertise.
It is. I mean, I think that's what the sweet spot that I was talking about before. On first you need to have the specialists are needed in order to go deep into a subject and to codify it and to simplify it for the benefit of the mass. Marketers. If you have everybody learning on their own, then it's just going to take you longer, or you're going to do things kind of halfway. Do an experiment and abandon it and never really consolidate and advance the science of what you're doing.
And I think it demands of all of us as well a better ability to collaborate. So we need to bring in specialists, we need to rely on our agency partners to bring specialisms in there, but we all need to be open to a more collaborative way of working to really get the best out of all of the different skill sets you need to execute across a very complex ecosystem.
Marketing is a creative industry, and there's a huge amount of creativity on display at this event. One of the accusations that's been levelled against a more of a data-driven approach is that actually erodes creativity and things become a bit more automated, become a bit more robotic. Is that something you have to guard against in your roles?
No, I mean, I find data is a really good way of driving better creativity. It actually forces a better discipline in creativity. When we've had campaigns that have worked really well, at the heart of it is a big idea, a big insight, and a great emotional driver. And it's powerful enough to then work across multiple different touch points with the consumer. So I think that's a real demand and a creative challenge. The skills of then actually making it relevant to an individual person in an individual place is also really a whole creative challenge in itself as well. And certainly I've seen creatives rise to that challenge and execute some really, really strong stuff. So.
That's right, and I think that's absolutely right, Stuart. And I want to kind of bring it back to a point you made earlier, Alex, about the use of data and marketers following consumers. I don't think that's what's happening at all. I think what's going to be happening in data is people are going to be using it for predictive purposes. So they're looking at intent and what people are intending to do. So, for example, as people search, they're throwing out signals about intention and what's interesting them. And therefore, as a marketeer, strategically using that data, you can start to predict what products and what services you can provide that's going to satisfy an innate desire. So I don't think it holds back creativity at all. I do think that the intersection between creative and technology needs to have a bigger voice. When you look at this environment, you would believe it's all about technology rather than people and outcomes. And of course, it's all about people and outcomes. And that's where great creativity and creative leaps, fed by data, fed by technology, is where we should be at.
I agree, and I think that we talked at the beginning about the disruptiveness of what's going on. Everybody has to reinvent themselves, including the creatives. So the creatives need to do better use of data to get stronger, more compelling, more relevant creativity, so that we can get faster adapting creativity, so that we can get better results. So it could be that you could get lost. It could be that, but I think that the new world is you need to find ways to take advantage of that data to get better quality creative.
And following up what we've just been discussing there, I mean, obviously data and technology enables scale across international markets, but does it enable storytelling over internet? Is that possible to do really good brand storytelling across international markets using data and technology in a way that still keeps that engagement and that the attention of consumers?
Yeah, we've got an interesting case study from the summer. We created a digital toolkit based around our core brand campaign of Flavour Your Way for multiple markets to use across the EMEA. It's a barbecue toolkit, and it was all very much led by data. So Starcom went right into the detail of what people were looking for, what their attitudes were to cooking, and we created a number of different videos, a number of different assets, plus recipes, plus all of the associated social content as well. And we did manage to apply that almost to every single market in Europe. So because we used data as a starting point, we understood the consumer, we found the really consistent elements. There are lots of differences from market to market, especially in food. But actually we found the consistencies, and we saw really very high engagements come from that. So data really helped us hone in on the things that people find interesting and engage with.
Yeah, we had similar experience with, we take a look at the Old Spice campaign and all the content that we were developing as we were learning what was happening. That's a perfect example. Or also Always Like a Girl, which we just, launched. We had a similar approach. So that's a very good example of how can you leverage the data as you're getting to continue that story that you started, and then actually to maybe take you to places where you didn't know you were going to go, but it's making it, more and more relevant and more, stronger for your objectives.
Yeah, and what's been really interesting as well is, just back to your point, is that you can stretching it between what's happening now and what the current kind of easy wins are in barbecue food, for example, in barbecue cuisine. It's quite a nice and comfortable place to be, but also the data allows you to kind of start to anticipate and see the early curves up on different trends and what's coming in the future as well. So you can kind of place your bets quite carefully against the kind of the easy wins now, and also where we're going in the future too. So yeah, and then
this is about optimization then.
Yeah.
Something like the Old Spice campaign, or Like a Girl, always. You can kick off something that you think is a great concept, great idea, but then you can evolve it as you see perhaps that bit's not working quite as well.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you can improve it as you go, not only from a creative standpoint but also from a media standpoint. And I must say, when I say media, it's not only digital, but it's also PR, it's also TV, it's also radio, it's whatever is needed in order to make it bigger. Yeah.
And I think the whole definition of scale has changed. We talk about scaling, and scaling used to be about having distribution and plants and so on and so forth that you were driving globally. And to some extent it still is, but of course scale is now actually being driven by the algorithm. So scale is about how quickly you can move, how intelligent your algorithm is to allow you to do some of the stuff that we're describing here. So if you have a technology that allows you to better sequence content along a customer journey, that's a very powerful thing. And those technologies can be put into any particular market, assuming you've got the right data infrastructure in the organisation. So that's the kind of new challenge, the new definition of scale. And that's how some of the disruptors are scaling so quickly, because they've recognised that the scale game has changed.
Yeah, it's a really interesting area of technology, sort of really facilitating the consumer experience and creating a better experience for brands as well. So if you look at our website 2-3 years ago, it was very much products, recipes, quite obvious content that was on there. Technology now has allowed us to create a much more integrated experience. So we've got blog content on there, we've got rich articles and content that's really interesting and kind of about a broader food story than just recipes and products. And at the same time, all of our content now links through to a purchase or a sale, either in store or online as well. So the whole shopper journey is kind of in there in one platform, and whatever the entry point is for the consumer, we're kind of taking them on a journey through to that final sale. So technology really helps get a better consumer experience.
And actually, I mentioned commerce at the start, and we haven't really talked about it, but in terms of, are we entering a new world now where actually previously, media chats, but particularly for FMCG kind of companies, that media and marketing has been a way of driving shoppers into stores where they would buy products, but actually digital opens up doors to that much more direct relationship with consumers. And is that an opportunity you're both sensing?
Absolutely, yes, an opportunity yet to be exploited, to its maximum. I think we're in the early days, particularly with FMCG products that are, let's say, part of, while you're navigating and maybe you find something really relevant and then you really like that product, but it's like you're not going to buy one shampoo and then pay more for the delivery than for the shampoo itself. So how do we solve for that? Is the type of dilemmas that we have in front of us. But I'm sure that as we move along and technology, basket or whatever, we're going to find solutions to that.
Yeah, and similar for me as well. The obviously as the world's converging. Then we are, getting much. There's lots of different ways to basically deliver product to a consumer or deliver an experience to a consumer. So the retailers are still absolutely critically important for us, and they're great partners in terms of being convenient for people to be able to access that product. But we're all on the same kind of ground of creating a better consumer experience. Tesco, Sainsbury's in the UK would be creating lots of recipe content, and so whether we're creating recipe content. So really, again, it's about this collaboration and giving, working with the retailers, working with publishers, working with media channels to create a great experience for our consumer, wherever they contact the brand, whether it's through a third party or directly with us as well. So I think technology really enables that conversation
I think
evolve.
I agree with you. I think consumer expectation has been reset fundamentally. I mean, what people expect to be able to do is click to sale if they want to. So they can have a brand experience, they can have a social experience. They want to be able to move straight to a sales stream. Now that doesn't negatively damage retailers, because of course retailers have an e-commerce business, and actually it's about connecting that sort of knowledge with the retailer knowledge to give a seamless experience. And that's happening now, and I think that'll be a very big development as you increasingly see, as Stuart was saying, media, content and commerce collapsing, and that's what's happening here.
Yeah, there's a really nice example in that area that we've been working on, where actually collaborating with a startup has really helped us move our business on dramatically. So the experience we offer on our website or mobile now is powered by Whisk, who are a recipe website, and they can take all your ingredients and basically you choose where you want to add it, take it into store with a mobile phone, shop it on your online basket at Tesco's, buy it directly from McCormick. It's all within one experience, and that that's all from a collaboration with a small hungry startup who've got great ideas, and we work very closely with them on that one, and it's given us good results.
I'm conscious that time is passing, and I don't want to keep you guys for too much longer. Let's fast forward 3 years. We're older, we're wiser. We've solved hopefully some of these challenges that we've been talking about. We're back at Dmexco in 2018. What do you think the landscape will look like in a few years' time in terms of the challenges facing advertisers, and perhaps some of the things that you guys have solved as well?
I think it will look more familiar. I mean, really,
Not so different.
It's today. I come here 3 years ago. I was like, oh my God, what's my name and what am I doing here and why? And now it's like, yeah, I get it. This is bullshit. Sorry.
No,
cut that.
That's okay.
But, come on, I see through. And okay, this I understand. This is less new. I feel a little bit better. So in 3 years, I hope there will never be a moment where I know everything, but I think it will become more familiar. There will be, maybe more, bigger consolidation of, the bigger ideas, survival of some of the people that we see here.
Yeah,
the more successful ones. We're definitely going to be in a better place, hopefully, where we're driving, as I said, our investments in a more effective and efficient way, but in a more familiar place, I hope.
Yes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think what will change the most in the next 3 years is the convergence of all of the data platforms into much more digital marketing hubs, rather than a DMP, a DSP, a CRM tool. All this is going to come together into one place. And in 3 years, I think there'll be businesses who are leveraging that technology, seeing great efficiencies, great return on investment, and there'll be businesses that haven't engaged with those yet, and those will be the businesses that are struggling and really hurrying to catch up. So in 3 years, I think there'll be a much more consolidated market in that place, and much greater involvement in that from smaller businesses. From you guys like P&G, you've been doing it for a little while. We're getting there, but there's a lot more opportunity for people to invest in that area.
Yeah. So being sort of fairly blunt about it, we might have a better idea of the winners and losers.
I think there'll absolutely be, over the next 3 to 5 years, an enormous separation between winners and losers. Because as Taide said right at the beginning of this conversation, that gap is opening up. Once you become disconnected from your people, your consumer, things happen really quickly, and there's a disruptor will move in on you quickly. I mean, and look at some of those disruptors. Even people like Google are being disrupted today by ad blocking technology, So that pace, actually, I think is going to accelerate. I think we've only just seen the really early stages of what mobility and what mobile is going to do to all of our worlds. there won't be a distinction between PC and mobile. There simply won't be that distinction. So I think there's going to be fundamental change. And it gets down to a mindset and a culture of an organisation. Now, how well is that organisation equipped to handle ambiguity, constant change, and constant disruption? Because that's going to be how it is. And that's very exciting for people who are builders, creators and developers. And they're the people who are going to thrive.
It sounds like it's going to be a breathless few years for the industry, and had a breathless conversation. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and hopefully see you soon.